Imagine living in a small, secluded village. The crisp, cool air and the falling, dancing leaves are soothing to the touch. Your neighbors all support each other as a friendly and close-knit community. There's no conflict to be seen, only tranquility. You hate it here. Your father, the mayor, refuses to let anyone leave the village, especially you, who's supposed to succeed him in just a few years. You feel trapped, and your resentment for your father and your destiny grows. How does anyone expect you to find your own path in life? This is the premise for Jordan, one of my characters I'm designing for my own RPG. Hopefully, this gave you a small sense of how powerful character design can be. Character design is not just about what your character looks like, it's about making the player experience the world in your character's shoes. Characters serve as a vehicle for your own thoughts, beliefs, and ideas, regardless whether the characters are human or not. With the right elements, you can craft an unforgettable experience that appeals to fans for years to come. For full transparency, I'm neither a professional character designer or artist. Rather, as a hobbyist, I would like to share what I learned from designing my own characters. With that out of the way, let's get started. The first step to creating an awesome character is finding an idea. This idea can be literally anything that you think is awesome, such as a cool gameplay mechanic, a backstory, or a quirky character trait. Let the ideas flow freely for now. There's plenty of time to clean them up later. Oh, and don't get hung up on being original. Being original becomes more challenging as the video game market grows. If you have an original idea, that's awesome. However, generating ideas from inspiration helps sell games, as players tend to gravitate to what they already know. Just make sure to add your own spin to the inspiration. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you become very familiar with this guy. Originally, I wasn't even planning to have unique character designs at all for my other platformer game. I just wanted to make a game where you could flick a stick figure around the screen. Therefore, my initial idea was really just a game mechanic. However, my friend suggested making a character to add more appeal to the game. After Googling, "what do you flick?" I found pictures of beans and then decided to base my character on that. Now I know what you're thinking. To be completely honest, I did not realize this was an innuendo at the time. Once we found out though, it was so funny that we just had to make it work. My point is, your character idea can literally come from anywhere, and as long as you think it's cool, that's all that matters at this stage. While I encourage you to express your cool ideas, it's also important that your ideas don't feel out of place in your game. To do this, you'll need to have some context on your game world and the other important characters. There's no right or wrong way to do this. As long as you take some time to make them belong together, you're good. Let's revisit Flick, the bean, from my platformer as an example. Since I liked the bean idea, my next task was to design a world around it. I settled on making the enemies fruits, vegetables, and other legumes. With these, it was easy to see how my bean guy could live in this world. As far as his motivation goes, puns like jumping bean, silly bean, or has been gave me inspiration to make him someone who was forced upon the adventure against his will. I guess I finally spilled the beans on how this character came to be.
Boo! You stink!
That's great for creating worlds, but what about a party of characters? Ideally, your party should have a mix of personalities, backgrounds, and design motifs. Final Fantasy VII's playable character roster is one of the best examples of this I've seen in a video game. Not only do all of them have a unique physical appearance, they also have unique personalities, combat capabilities, and limit breaks. Understanding that your characters and your world should go hand in hand, how can you find ideas and better manage them? As you design your characters, you'll need to understand some nitty-gritty details about them, such as their backstory, personality quirks, and unique gameplay mechanics. To help identify those details, there are great character design websites that provide questions you can ask about your characters, which I'll link in the description. Don't be afraid to use these as a guide to flesh out your character designs more. As you progress through, you may have a need to see all your character's traits at once. To address this, I ended up creating a spreadsheet like this one. This template is also in the description for you to freely use. Filling it out is simple. Each column is a character, and each row identifies an attribute that that character has. The big advantage of a spreadsheet is that you can compare characters very quickly. When ideas overlap, I use this as an opportunity to vary the characters' outlooks on those ideas. For example, Jordan shares a similar upgrading to another one of my characters, named Xena. Jordan resents his life for this, while Xena has a fond experience growing up this way. This also allowed me to do a little game balancing. Since Jordan is innately a blue character, I made Xena a green character so the early game would have more diversity. As you work through your character spreadsheet, do the best you can to answer what you currently know about your characters, but don't worry about getting it all filled out at once. There's also going to be times where certain questions are not applicable to certain characters, and that's okay. I also recommend brainstorming minute details about the characters that seem less important on the surface. Real humans have little quirks that make them special, so why shouldn't your characters? Jordan loves studying maps, for example, despite never leaving his village. After some time, you'll start to see that your character goes from being a one-note idea to a believable person with many qualities. Now that you compiled some character attributes, it's time to use those details to create a visual design. This video won't go over any drawing techniques, that's for a different video. However, we can still brainstorm what your character will look like. You may have heard of the phrase form follows function when it comes to character design. All this means is that your character's visual appearance should reflect their gameplay and story role. Take Octopath Traveler for example. It's pretty obvious what each character's combat role is just by looking at them. This is especially important for Octopath Traveler because the player must start with only one of them, and the designs communicate clear expectations of the experience. Let's see how I applied this idea when making Jordan's character design. Jordan's main role is to debuff enemies and optimize his damage by striking many times with his fists. This isn't exactly a thief or rogue role per se, but I find it to feel very similar in practice. The thief archetype also matches well with his personality, which is jaded, observant, and brooding. Now you don't have to confine yourself to archetypes, but it definitely helps provide a starting point in your design journey. After identifying an archetype or frame of reference, it's time to find some inspiration. Like the initial idea, you can find inspiration from literally anywhere, including real life. Tools like Pinterest or even Google image search can be helpful for generating inspiration as well. When I see something on my feed that resembles a character idea I like, I pin it to a specific board I made for that character. Also, there will be times where I'll be playing a game and think, wow, this character reminds me of the one I'm designing. Besides finding other characters that do similar things to yours, the only other real rule I'd follow here is to make sure the design elements have a reason for being there. Yes, there are technical principles like silhouettes, shape language, and color theory, but I find those depend more on art style, and I'll cover those in a future video. That aside, feel free to find design elements you like and think about how they fit your character. Also, don't feel like you need to make the design complex for the sake of it. Simpler designs are also advantageous for animation, so keep that in mind. Let's look at Jordan in more detail. His blue hair resembles his innate blue color, while his dull and narrow eyes represent a dull life experience so far. As you also see, he wears a very formal-looking jacket, which harkens to his origins as the mayor's son. Now you may be thinking, if he hates his life his father wants him to live, wouldn't he be choosing to wear something completely different? And you would be right, but there's a little something called irony that I think can really make a character that much more intriguing. Irony in character design is unironically one of my favorite things. Looking back at Final Fantasy VII, Barret is a character design I feel utilizes this, and is one of my favorite characters for it. On the surface, he's tough and mean, running a large-scale takedown of Shinra, a large corporation. However, when the game shows you the interaction he has with his daughter Marlene, it shows you a caring man who wants to make the world a better place. If you're trying to hide details about a character or give them little quirks, masking them in a bit of visual irony can do the trick. For Jordan, wearing the straitjacket could potentially symbolize that deep down he has some aspiration to be a mayor. But that's for the players to decide, right? Finally, remember that they're your character designs. If you enjoy the ideas you had and are proud of them, don't worry about who doesn't appreciate it. As long as your character represents you, people will have a reason to relate to them and will enjoy them more. Use this opportunity to express yourself through your characters. That's all for this one. Do you feel that my perspective makes sense? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thank you and have a great day.